Welcome to Backroom Talk.
We're here today talking about behaviors. Yeah, it's a hard bias to lose the emphasis on exercise because it's what coaches know, it's what they're most comfortable prescribing, and a lot of the times it's what the market is expecting.
Losing body fat. So when we talk about, maintaining a caloric deficit, the first thing that we have to look at, or the first thing we can look at, is the person should be consistently moving.
You often get people that come in, they want to improve their body composition. They want to lose some body fat. They also want to put lean mass on at the same time. I'm throwing this one at you, Carl. Can you do both at the same time?
To listen to more Backroom Talk, be sure to subscribe. Learn to design personalized programs with the OPEX system of coaching by heading to opexfit.com.
Hey guys, welcome to another week of Backroom Talk. We're here today talking about behaviors and fitness goals and how those two connect. And we're going to stay away from exercise, which is kind of crazy.
Are we really?
Well, I think we're hitting on it a little bit.
We'll hit some considerations.
Yes.
Yeah.
But we're not
it's not exercise focused.
It's not nuts and bolts. We're talking about the stuff, for the most part, that's probably more important when it comes to fitness results. Look, exercise is important. People have to train if they want to, achieve these specific goals and outcomes. But there's a lot of other stuff that needs to be lined up with that.
Yeah, it's more backround talk and exercise, right? Like also consider these things. So yeah, I get it.
Yeah. Should we dive straight in, or is there anything else you want to say about behavior?
No, I think just having a conversation to start on, the importance of lifestyle and behavior as it relates to just like health, wellness, and goals. And I think we mentioned it probably 10 episodes ago. I think we talked about lifestyle considerations or something like that. But I think what we propose, it's like, hey, what if we considered lifestyle and behavior more important than exercise? So I think that's something that we need to keep like challenging coaches with, where it's like, don't worry so much about, A, B, and C in the exercise program. Worry about A, B, and C in the lifestyle program and like what that can be, and kind of putting that on the forefront.
Yeah, it's a hard bias to lose the emphasis on exercise because it's what coaches know, it's what they're most comfortable prescribing, and a lot of the times it's what the market is expecting from the coach, right?
Yeah.
And so everyone really, puts exercise on a pedestal because they're just not like really sure how to approach this lifestyle behaviors piece. But I think what we propose is how to actually do that. We try and give coaches a system and like an actual platform through Coach RX to be able to deliver these things just like they would exercise, with the same amount of emphasis as exercise, and communicating to their clients that both of these things have to line up, and like that expectation from the front is that this fitness program probably it's not going to work. Like you might get some results, but it's going to be massively limited if we're not actually looking after these areas. So we need to be talking about all of them.
Yeah, I kind of look at it. Dale Carnegie, actually, are you familiar?
Yeah.
How he talked about skills, and we have soft skills and we have hard skills. Soft skills being like you have the ability to communicate, build relationships, you have empathy, so on and so forth. Hard skills, it's like I'm really good at this one thing. I'm really good at measuring. I'm really good at understanding metrics. I'm really good at pushing that whole thing forward. And what he proposed was, because typically people think, okay, I need to have soft skills after I establish my hard skills. Where what he proposed, he's like, no, having really good soft skills is actually on the forefront, and then you build your hard skills after that. So I think exercise design is more of a hard skill, where it's like you can measure it. I think that's why coaches are so drawn to it, because it's like, did we get better from this session to this session? I can just look at times and load and so on and so forth, and we can just measure that thing. So it's just so simple because it's measurable. And I think those same coaches look at lifestyle prescriptions and behaviors as soft skills, where it's like, I need to get really good at designing exercise programs, and then I'll figure all that other shit out, instead of saying, I want to get really good at building relationships, changing people's lifestyles and behaviors, and then, adding exercise as like a background thing. So I think a lot of coaches look at exercise as a hard skill that must be established first.
Yeah, but I think you can prescribe both of those things in a similar way where there is measurement around it. And in creating a new habit or behavior, you have to give people something tangible that they can do and that they can say, yes or no, I was or was not able to do this thing today. And there's always been a vagueness. It's like, go out and get some sunshine. Eat healthier foods. It's good to eat vegetables. Make sure that you're getting adequate protein throughout the day. But often there's not like a simple and a straightforward way for people to measure those things. And often there's not specific behaviors that are attached to making sure that you're eating a healthy diet, quote unquote. Like, what does it actually mean to eat a healthy diet?
Yeah.
So, helping coaches reframe those soft skills as like a little bit more of a hard skill, and thinking about how can we make it measurable and repeatable, just like exercise is.
Yeah, it's a big piece, right? It's like, how do you tangibly say, hey, Georgia, do this today? And then at the end of the week, we have an understanding of, did you do those things or not? I think historically what coaches have done is they did do it. They were like, hey, this is what I want you to do in lifestyle and behavior. And they just didn't have a really good way to measure it. So it was like they'd get to, 4 weeks down the road, and then the conversation would resurface and be like, oh, did you do those things that we talked about 4 weeks ago? And it was like, well, I did it for the first couple of days, and then I kind of just got off track, and then life happened. And then the coach is like, okay, well, let's try that again, right? So they try the same thing over and over and over with no success. So they just eventually forget about it, and then they focus on exercise because that's so easy to look at and view and understand if there was success there or not. So like you mentioned with the Coach RX piece, it's like that's the problem we're attempting to solve. I don't think we've solved it quite yet. I still think we have a ways to go. And I think the only reason I say that is because coaches need to be really bought into that idea of, you have to look at what you're prescribing in lifestyle, and you have to look at that with the same eye, or even, more of a sharper eye than you look at exercise.
Yeah, definitely. And again, what I've found with Coach RX and with lifestyle prescriptions inside of there is, look, there's some people that are just the kind of client that they're going to fill everything out, and they keep track of everything on exercise and the lifestyle stuff. But there's some people that's like not a natural behavior for them. And like maybe they've like just established it in exercise where they log their workouts in Coach RX, like inconsistently perhaps. But they're not yet at the point where they have the value around doing the same thing for lifestyle. And that comes back to consistent conversation over and over and over again, and, hammering on the importance of doing that. But I know, like, for example, I have clients who are just bad at filling out their lifestyle piece because that's not a behavior we've created yet. And the precedent we set was not doing that stuff on a daily basis. So it's a little bit of like, backpedaling, undoing bad behaviors around there and just creating new ones.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Let's get into it.
Yeah, let's talk. I know like we've got three goals or outcomes that your typical Gen Pop person might come to a gym with. And, maybe there are some athletes that would have these goals as well, connected to some performance outcomes. But the three we're going to start with, and we'll break them down.
I think actually 99% of people have these. They're looking for these three outcomes.
Yeah, I'd say so. And probably some combination of all of them.
Yeah.
A lot of the time.
Yeah, and there's a lot of connectivity between some of them as well, right?
There definitely is.
Because you don't want to go so far with one and leave the other behind.
Yeah.
Just on the energy piece.
Yes.
Yep.
So losing body fat.
Yep.
Gaining muscle. And feeling great. Feeling good.
Mm-hmm.
Just general well-being. So those are the three we're going to talk about initially. And we're going to lay out the habits and behaviors that are important for each of them and why, and talk about some examples as well connected to those. So let's start with fat loss.
Cool. Let's do it.
The good old goal of fat loss.
Yeah. The way I wanted to look at these was, we have this goal, and then it's like, what are some outcomes inside of that goal that need to happen or that would help a person get to that goal? And then with that outcome, what are the behaviors inside of that outcome that would lead to it? So that's kind of how my brain organized that. And it was probably because of what you guys did with like that flow chart. And now it's like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I think that's where my head is with that. So when looking at losing body fat, if the goal is to maintain the goal should be to maintain a consistent caloric deficit.
Yep.
That's the goal, right? Like there's a lot of other things that are inside of it, but that's like the main goal or outcome within losing body fat. So when we talk about, maintaining a caloric deficit, the first thing that we have to look at, or the first thing we can look at is, let's make it easy and talk about exercise first, and then we'll get into all the things outside of exercise. The person should be consistently moving in exercise.
Yep.
So that could be in resistance, that could be in aerobic work, whatever that is. So that would be that first outcome that comes to mind, is you just need to move your body.
Yeah. If someone is doing no activity at all, or is highly inactive, that's a whole lot of energy that is not being expended. And when we're thinking about having someone in a caloric deficit, you can totally have someone sit at a chair all day and just pull calories really low. But number one, is that what we do as fitness coaches and like what we think is healthy? No, we think that there are a lot of outcomes from exercise that are not just fat loss. So there are other reasons to move as well. But secondarily, I think it feels better to do some activity and then pull back calories, not to such a drastic extent as you would have to if someone is just laying in it, in their bed all day and trying to lose fat doing that.
Yeah, for sure. And the behavior that, a coach needs to help a client, get to or determine as it relates to exercise, they need to help them build a type of fitness or a fitness program and a schedule that allows consistency. I think that's it, right? It's like that's the behavior that needs to be worked on between the coach and the client. What days are we going to do this exercise, and what are we going to do inside of this exercise? And those two considerations are going to lead to, are we going to be able to do this consistently over a long period of time? Because I think the main point in the caloric deficit piece is you want to maintain it over a long period of time, right? Like you don't want to do it, like you're saying, so drastically where it's like, we're at a 600 calorie per day deficit and we're going to do that. Let me get even more, polar. We're going to go 1,000 calorie per day deficit because we want to lose 5 pounds in 3 weeks, right? It's like, that's a little bit aggressive, right? So the goal shouldn't be that. It shouldn't be super aggressive. It should be, what can we do over a longer period of time? So when I say longer with fat loss, I'm thinking like 8 to 12 weeks.
Yeah. Because
you don't want to be in caloric deficits for months and months and months and months without having some kind of break to let your body come back to normal.
Yeah. I also think on the other flip side of exercise, if you're doing it in a way that is so intense and so challenging that you're not going to be able to extend that out for 8 to 12 weeks and, realistically the exercise piece forever, that's going to be problematic too. Because I look at, back at my old gym, there was a boot camp, a VIP boot camp that was like just down the street from where we were, and they sold this. It was like 60 or 90 days transformation package where I think you paid like $500 up front, and essentially if you lost a certain amount of weight, your goal weight, you got your money back. And the exercise practices that they were having these people do were not sustainable at all. And it was like this, essentially, how much weight can we lose in this short period of a time approach, where the more exercise.
Hold on. I can't wrap my head around this business model. So
it's crazy. Well, no one loses the weight.
Okay. So, okay. Hold on. VIP boot camp is saying that if you reach your goals, you will pay nothing.
Exactly. And then I think they had the option to like roll the $500 into like ongoing membership if people wanted to. But here's the problem is it's such an intense approach, and it's such like losing 20 pounds in 60 days. That's fucking aggressive. People are so burnt out by the end of the 60 days.
Unless you're 800 pounds.
Well, this is true. This is true. But that's not the demographic they were talking to. They were talking to, middle class mums who had a little bit of extra weight that they needed to lose, and thought that punishing themselves through exercise was the right approach to do so. But we actually got a lot of those people coming over to us after, because they'd like kind of check out what they were doing as they were running past looking miserable. We called it, we don't need to go down the rabbit hole, but they look like zombies. These people looked really, really just so sad and like zombies running and walking laps around the building, trying to lose their weight to get the money back.
Yeah, it's that Biggest Loser story, right? Yeah. Is that show still on?
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you see that. It's the same thing, right? It's like you attack this thing so aggressively where your body actually cannot sustain it, and your body's in that mode where it's like, I need to get to a point where I can preserve myself because I'm dying. So, some of those people would lose just crazy amounts of weight. Like some of them would lose 50, 60, 100, 150 pounds in weeks, like 8 weeks. And then they'd, get sent off on their own. And it's like, okay, now figure it out. And their bodies are like in this preservation mode. And they're so used to eating this amount of calories and exercising this much. And obviously these people can't sustain that on their own, especially. And they go over calorically and they go under exercise wise, and their body's like, okay. And then just puts on all that weight right back on. So I think that's probably the story that, places like that would see when they approach it with that non-sustainable approach, where it's just like your body is a really intelligent thing, and it's going to do what it has to do to survive.
Yeah. So sustainability, that's
and
really the piece of exercise.
Mm-hmm.
So what else? What other behaviors?
Okay,
are important?
so that one was consistent exercise, and then the other one inside of maintain a consistent caloric deficit would be increase non-exercise movement.
Yep.
So ideas would be walks, MAP 10, outdoor recovery, standing and sitting at a 1-to-1 ratio instead of sitting all day. And I say 1-to-1 because it's just as bad to stand up all day as it is to sit down all day for a lot of people.
Yeah.
A lot of people complain of issues with that. So not biasing the standing over the sitting.
For sure. And I mean, this like neat piece is so location dependent and culture dependent. And that's something I've really come to observe with people living in, like growing up in Sydney, where public transport and walking around and like being outdoors and walking from your house up to the local shops is the norm. I look at my parents and they actually do quite a lot of NEAT. And that's like their saving grace, right? That they are able to get outside, that walking is a part of culture. Going on a bushwalk, going for a swim, that's just like stuff that people do. They get out, they garden, they work in the city. So they're like walking around the city from the train station. They get that movement. And then I went to live in Detroit, and in Detroit, no one walks and everyone drives from A to B. And it's so cold part of the year that you wouldn't even want to walk down to your mailbox, let alone, go on a walk around the block for 15 minutes. So as a coach, you start to think NEAT has to look different for different people, depending on where they are. And let's think about, middle of the winter in Michigan. You're not getting someone outside to take a walk in minus 15 with 2 feet of snow. It's not going to happen.
Yep.
So how in that environment can we help people put NEAT into their life?
Yeah, I think it's easy just to say that, right? I think it's easy to say that. I've spent a lot of years in a few different really cold places. There's really no excuse unless it's in the middle of a blizzard and it's like, hey, I can't get out. But that's not day to day for most people, depending on where those people live. Even when we lived in Alaska, right? Like we still got out and moved quite frequently in the wintertime. So I don't really buy that that's an excuse for people, because there's things that people can do outside when it's cold, when there's like we have protective equipment that we can put on to protect ourselves and stuff like that. So I think we just have to do a little bit of research as a coach as to where that person lives and what they have available around them. If someone's absolutely not willing to go outside in the winter, it's like, hey, maybe you should move, right? Because it's just not healthy as a human being to sit inside of your house for 6 months every year. It's like, maybe you shouldn't live in that place if you can't go outside and enjoy the outdoors. That's what I did. If that's not the case, if they don't have the ability to move, of course, obviously that's extremely radical. Then just figure out other ways to move, right? It's like you can be indoors and still move your body. It's not always, steps, and that's like the guiding light. It's like, got to get 8,000 steps every single day, and if we don't, it's a failure. That's not always the thing. But I think as a coach, you just have to do some research and look at what people have around them.
Yeah, definitely. And if for whatever reason someone's not able to get outside for a regular walk or not willing to, maybe the conversation is let's get you a treadmill or a bike that you can have at home and you can spin in front of the TV while you wind down at night.
Yeah.
So just finding other strategies for that.
Yeah, I think optimally it is getting people outside, though, figuring out a way to get people outside. Yeah. Like, you hear it in big cities. Like, we had a call a couple months ago, and we were talking to Adam in Riverdale, and they're in New York City. And we asked the question like, hey, what do you guys do for outdoor activity in New York City? And he's just like, you just gotta get creative. And there's like this big trend of like urban hiking right now that a lot of people are doing in big cities. But you could do a version of that no matter where you are. I mean, I don't think it's a huge deal that everyone else around you isn't out walking. It's like you can still go outside and walk. I just think we have to try to get people outside.
For sure. And figuring out like what kinds of activities they enjoy. Because, on the one hand, it might be that urban adventuring and hiking. On the other hand, someone could enjoy gardening, and that's what gets them outside. Someone might like to go and do nature photography. So how can you connect outdoor experiences with what that person really enjoys doing? Because if I told my husband Jacob that he needed to go and work in the garden for an hour to get some movement, he'd roll his eyes at me. But on the other hand, if I passed him his camera and told him, let's go walk around downtown and like see what people are out and about and doing and take some street photography, he'd be on board. And that's awesome, neat, like getting out and walking and crouching down. So it just looks a little different for everyone.
Yeah, and challenge clients to try new things as well, right? Definitely. It's like maybe sit down in a consult and lay out, 5 opportunities to move a little bit more outside. And just, it's a goal to try each one of those things, over each of the next 5 weekends. It's like the goal is to try this and then try this and then try this and then recap at the end of that. And it's like, which 1 or 2 or 3 of those things did you really enjoy that we can actually put inside of your program?
Yeah.
Because as fitness coaches, it's one thing to say to do something, but I think it's more powerful to agree with a client that that's what you're going to do and then prescribe it to them.
Yeah, definitely.
So there's some accountability there.
Yeah, arriving at the strategy that you're going to be implementing together. I think that's always a better way to go about it when you're trying to make it work with their life.
Absolutely.
What about considerations for NEAT for someone that's bound to a desk, for an office worker? Is there anything there?
Yeah, I think it's the same thing, right? It's like, lay out an ideal day of opportunities to get in some movement and get away from the desk. Just what we know about work. I mean, no one's sitting down for 8 hours and rolling forward with really high quality work. Everyone needs breaks. Challenge people to, finish something and, maybe it's before lunch, they go for a walk. Maybe it's after lunch. Maybe it's after they finish this task or that task. Maybe you can have them take some of their meetings on the phone instead of on a webcam, and they can, walk around outside while they take those meetings. I think you just have to look at everyone's individual situation and try to find ideas of how can we incorporate more movement in your day.
Definitely.
But yeah, I think NEAT is, or just moving your body outside of exercise. I think that's extremely underutilized.
Yeah.
It's so easy. You can burn a decent amount of energy just by going for walks, and people don't understand. They'd rather take food away than go for a walk. It's like,
way rather go for a walk.
It's like, hey, just like let's be really patient with the calories. Let's not try to get into that deficit by taking away all of your food. Instead, let's just move your body right in a sustainable way, and going on walks is extremely sustainable for most people.
Yeah.
So I think it's underutilized.
Definitely. And just I guess to backtrack, NEAT is non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So the energy someone would be burning through not exercise in the gym, through walking, through taking the stairs instead of the elevator, things like that. Just wanted to make sure everyone knows what we're talking about.
Yeah, good one. That's why how did I describe it? I said movement outside of the gym.
Yeah.
That's just what I said. Yeah. And then the last piece that I think is important is avoiding hormonal disruption.
Yep.
So, not trying to fit alcohol into your macros, because that's not the way the body works, right? What does alcohol do? It's a poison, right? I'm not vilifying alcohol and saying don't touch it, but if your goal is to lose body fat and that's really important to you, you probably shouldn't be putting poison inside of your body that's going to disrupt your metabolism.
Certainly.
Smoking is also something that will disrupt hormones and hormonal function and metabolism. For some people, it's actually a good thing. For some people, it increases. For others, it decreases. Stress and considerations around stress and what's on your mind and how much sleep you get and all of those things. So just thinking about just basic lifestyle pieces that we always talk about and how you can't forget about those things. Because when we look at, remember the goal is to maintain a caloric deficit over a long period of time. A caloric deficit isn't just, well, it is calories in and calories out, but calories in and calories out is so complex and complicated. No one understands it really, especially the calories out piece. So how many calories we're burning on a daily basis, quote unquote. There's a lot of considerations that go into that. I'll just stop there. It is calories in and calories out, but there's a lot to it.
Yeah. And all of those pieces that can disrupt hormone production can have an effect on that metabolic rate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
absolutely. Even with, some women that try, I say women just because women are a little bit more sensitive to, not eating hormonally and metabolically. Even a woman trying like, an extended fasting window that can actually disrupt metabolic function a lot, right? So you would think, okay, we're going to look at calories in, calories out. We're going to, shorten that window that they can actually consume calories. So in theory, they should be getting less calories if they don't have like, that like binge eating piece inside of their mind where like, I have to make up. But that's not always the issue because there's some disruption that can occur in not eating and being in that starvation mode over a longer period of time when you start to look at, estrogen and progesterone and what happens when a woman is starving. Like that shit just stops. Everything stops, right?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, and the reason why it stops is because the woman's body wants to protect itself. And it's like, hey, I can't bear a child right now because my body is in starvation mode. I need to stop all of this production. And you get some women that are like, well, I don't care. Like, I don't want to have kids. I don't want to have a period. But there's other things that come along with menstruation. Metabolic rates are increased when a woman is in menses. Energy, recoverability from exercise, all of that plays a huge role in everything. So considerations around, not being really hungry over longer periods of time is, and I'm not saying fasting is bad for women, but keep that in mind.
Yeah, definitely. I'd also just think about talking about the caloric deficit piece, looking at a week in entirety and making sure people have good rhythm from Monday through Sunday, not just Monday through Friday, because it's very easy for someone to have this, to be in this great caloric deficit from Monday through Friday when everything is in alignment, when they wake up and they go to the gym and they go to work for this amount of hours and then they have their post-work routine and they go to bed at a certain time and their food is all prepped. Like that part tends to be more straightforward, but then you introduce the chaos that can be the weekend, social pressures, maybe feelings of I was restricted all week and I need to, do something to make up for that because I deserve it. Mm-hmm. So you look at like those 2 days and what Saturday and Sunday can do if they're not in alignment with Monday through Friday. And those really have the ability to throw off all of the, all of the structure and the deficit that was in place for those 5 days. Yep. So helping people find some rhythm throughout the week. And that's not to say that Saturday needs to look like a work day and you have to spend 8 hours at your desk and do exactly this and you can't go out to eat. You certainly can do those things as well. But how can we bring, things closer to the middle where we do have consistency in intake, in movement, in sleep schedule, and in everything else, and just in priorities, Monday through Sunday as well.
Yeah. Was that a question?
Not really. Just a statement.
The Australian thing. You end and it always sounds like a question. I'm like, I don't know. You just told me your name.
If I had $1 for every time you asked me if that was a question. In fairness, sometimes I don't know what my name is.
No, I mean, yeah, I look at weekends as opportunities for a lot of people because they have control over their day. Like they don't have to be at the desk. They don't have to be in the office. That's an opportunity to maybe go out and move a little bit more. Mm-hmm. It's an opportunity to, I think people should have an opportunity to be a little bit looser, quote unquote, with their food. I don't think we have to, and realize we haven't talked about tracking macros at all in this conversation. Yeah. We're just talking about things to do intuitively. So, with that being the case, it's like, I think it's okay if someone is in naturally a more caloric deficit throughout the week than they are on the weekend, just because they do see it as an opportunity to just like enjoy food a little bit more. But I have to keep in line with like the goal is to lose body fat for this person. So, there has to be assessments that happen week over week over week and just see if progress is happening. So if someone is really loose on the weekends and they're really tight on the weekdays and they're seeing weight gain week over week, it's like maybe we need to get a little bit tighter on the weekends. But if they're a little bit loose on the weekends, tight on the weekdays, and they're losing, half a pound every week, it's like, yeah, cool. Keep doing what you're doing. It's working. There's no reason to tighten that up. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, what is it, the metabolic diet and this idea of a carb refeed on the weekends, that can work really well for some people.
Yeah.
To be able to do that, but not for everyone. And there can be, again, some hormonal issues or some benefits that come from that, depending on the person and where they're at and what everything else is in their life,
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of things. There's a lot of strategies that can be used to lose body fat more effectively. Even like not even talking about other people, even when I think about myself and strategies that I implement with myself, I always ask myself, do I want to be doing this same thing in 6 months? And if the answer is no, I just won't do it, because there's some things that can occur when you try a strategy that is way different than what you want to do or what you're doing now. And then transitioning back to normal, like that transition period can actually be brutal for someone's just like rhythm and metabolism.
Yeah.
For instance, like if someone, was just like a intuitive eater that's like fairly balanced, and they're like, okay, I'm going to test my blood and I'm going to go, I want, 0.3, ketone levels every single morning. And I want to be in ketosis, Monday through Saturday. And on Sunday, I'm going to do this carb refeed where I take in 600 grams of carbs. It's very enjoyable, feels good. I actually get a lot of energy from that, and I'm losing a bunch of body fat. That same person does that for 12 weeks, and they like hit their goal, whatever their goal is, and they're like, this just isn't sustainable anymore. I don't want to continue to do this. Now for them to go back to what they used to do, that's such a shift with their bodies and how their body metabolizes food, that they may put all that body fat back on by transitioning back to the way that they used to do things. So I think we always have to look at, what do I really look at? What do I want to be doing down the road? And yes, I can utilize this strategy to get to my goal now, but when I go back to the thing that I'm going to be doing down the road, I'm going to go back to where I am today, right? So I think people need to think about that when they implement these strategies that are much different than what they're doing today.
Definitely. I mean, there is going to be a time and a place for using very specific protocols that you might not intend on using forever, but those have to be implemented thinking about what happens next. Mm-hmm. And is there negative consequences of coming out the other side? And sometimes you just don't know until you've tried it. Yeah,
I would just save those for medical considerations, right? Like the stuff that, like you said, you're not going to be doing forever. What's the reason of doing it now then?
Yeah.
If it's to get on stage or something like that, then cool, I get it. But if it's, I just want to look better, I don't want to say never, but I wouldn't do it. And I think, we never really talked about why the hell someone would want to lose body fat. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's something that could be interesting to hit on, because there's people that want to lose body fat for aesthetics, and there's people that want to lose body fat for health reasons. Not judging either one of them, but I think we can get more on board with the person that wants to lose, 5% body fat and they're sitting at 40%, versus the person the guy that's at 12%, or no, the guy's that's at 10% and wants to get down to 7%.
Yeah.
It's like we have to have conversations, and we have to understand what are the implications from going from 45 to 35 or 10 to 7, right? It's like, what's the point? Why are we doing this? If it's, hey, I want to have more abs because it looks cool, it's like, okay, cool. But you also have to understand that, just like we're talking about the 40% body fat person going down to 35%, there's some health implications that come from being so lean on a day-to-day basis. A lean person, when you look under the hood, isn't usually a healthy person, like ultra lean person. So I think people need to consider that. and understand why the hell they want to do that.
Yeah, but let's be real. A lot of those people that want to go from 40% to 35% aren't necessarily motivated by health. We might know that there are some health positives that may come from shifting some body weight, and that there could be some good metabolic implications for them. But I know a lot of people who sit in that like 35 to 40% range who want to lose some body fat, and it has nothing to do with what their doctor sees on their blood work.
Oh man, I have much different experiences. I've worked with a decent amount of people that have had health scares.
Yeah.
That like there was a heart attack, there was type 2 diabetes, there was something where they're like, oh my God, I actually can't do this because I'm not going to live. Like I actually had a conversation last week. I was at my barber spot, and there was a barber that cuts hair next to him. And he came around, and like literally during my entire haircut, this guy just wanted to talk about health and fitness. And I had noticed, because I've been going to this guy for years, but I've noticed this guy next to my barber is just like shrinking. This guy was like, he told me he was like 310 pounds. And right now he's like 260. Wow. And it's just like so obvious. And this is over like a couple months. And he's just like talking to me, and the story he's telling, he's like, yeah, man, like I remember the day I was in here, I had, I just bought a 12-pack of Coca-Cola for the shop. I had like some kind of chips or something like that, a box of chips. And he's like, I had to go and run to the doctor. I forgot why he had to go. And he's like, that same day I got diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. I come back to the shop, and he's like, I made the decision right there where it's like, I can't, because this is what the doctor told him to do. It's like, stay away from sugar, do this, do that. After the doctor had a conversation with like what his day-to-day looks like, he came back and he told my barber, he's like, hey man, have that. I'm not touching that stuff anymore. I'm going to start going to the gym twice a week. I'm doing this. And the guy lost like 50 pounds in like 2 months because of that health scare. And all he did was, and we hear this story a lot, right? But all he did was he stopped drinking Coca-Cola. He stayed away from sugars, and he moved his body twice a week, like intentional movement in the gym twice a week. But anyway, he was like having this conversation with me of like, yeah, I'm kind of in this holding pattern right now. And we had a pretty long conversation as I was getting my haircut. But I hear that a lot, where it's like someone didn't realize that being that over fat was a big deal until their doctor said, hey, now you have this disease, right? Like you have a metabolic disease, and this is going to affect your quality of life, and it might affect how long you live. So I think a lot of like obese, over fat people, they come to that realization eventually if they're going to see a doctor and having conversations with people. So yeah, my experiences have been different on the over fat person.
Yeah, and I think maybe it's exposure to a lot of middle-aged women who are probably not, like, they're not in that obese category, but they're sitting in that, like, somewhere in that 30 to 35% range. Yeah. They could do with shedding a few pounds for some health reasons. Mm-hmm. But there's no, like, motivation connected to health. It's literally wanting to look a certain way. Yeah. And I think part of that's generational as well. Yeah. Maybe times are changing a little bit, and people are starting to put more value on health. But
I think a coach could. I think a coach's job is to educate that person, because we're talking about people that end up in gyms right now, right? Or they end up hiring a coach that's listening. It's that coach's job to educate that person on, yes, you probably want to lose 50 pounds because you don't like the way you look in the mirror, but you just jumped off of this InBody 570, and it gives us this visceral fat score, and yours is at 9, right? Like, now let's have some education on what that means, what visceral fat is, what that can lead to. And if that person came in and they did not give a shit at all about health, and that coach educates them on what that visceral fat number means and what that could lead to, they probably still want to lose 50 pounds for aesthetic purposes, but now they're probably starting to think about their health and their well-being.
Yeah, gosh, a lot of the people I'm talking about they're not coming to a fitness coach, or at least they're not sticking with one. They're probably going to a medical weight loss clinic or drinking Shakeology and hoping that that's their answer.
That's one way to get in a caloric deficit.
It definitely is. It's pretty miserable though.
I'm not sure what's in those things.
Yeah, it's not good. Not great.
But yeah, I think understanding why someone wants to lose body fat is that's where you start. I know we didn't start with that, but that's where you have to start, and you have to understand, are they going to be compliant to the behaviors that you lay out based on what their reason and purpose is behind wanting to get to that outcome. And that goes for everything that we'll talk about.
Yeah, because life gets challenging, right? Things aren't always easy. It's not always like super easy to make the decision to have the lean protein and the broccoli for lunch. Sometimes it's easier to eat the, fun food that was brought into work by your coworker. But if you're connected to the reason why you're doing what you're doing, it becomes easier in those moments to stick with the behaviors that you want to, and that are connected to your goals. So coaches always coming back to that and reminding their clients, or at least helping their clients remember what their motivations are, and why they want to lose that weight. I think that's way, way, way more powerful than just like hoping willpower will work for you.
Yeah, and the way people feel about themselves is a big deal as well. People having, self-hate versus self-love. There's a lot of success that can come along with just not being like, oh, I love myself no matter what, and I'm not going to make a change even if that change is good for me because I love myself the way I am. I'm not saying that, but that self-hate is dangerous, right? Especially when we start talking about weight loss and losing body fat and all of that, because if you hate yourself on a day-by-day basis, you're going to get into these ruts where you're just like, fuck it, I'm not going to be successful in this venture. I don't know why I even try. I'm just going to sit down and just like punish myself because I don't like myself, and I'm going to eat all the shit that I'm not supposed to eat, quote unquote, right? Versus the person that has like that high amount of self-love where they're just like, I'm doing this for this reason. I'm looking forward to where I'm going and the outcome, but I have to be okay with where I am today, right? I have to be okay with myself, and I have to pat myself on the back every night where, I turned the lights off and it was a successful day that could lead me closer to my goals. So I think understanding where someone sits there is important as well.
Yeah, gosh, there's certainly like that moment of joy that can come from reaching a goal and from like this big, lofty endpoint. It can feel really good for a moment to hit that. But if you're not having these little moments of success and feeling good about the process along the way, I was just listening to a book this morning and they were talking about exactly that, if someone gets $1 million 1 year, but then over the next 9 years makes $0, they are going to be less happy, fulfilled, whatever word you want to use, than the person that makes $100,000 over the course of 10 years. And I think it's the same, the same notion with any fitness goal. If we're only focused on this end thing and thinking that like one big payoff is going to, be what makes our life, then no one became a different, happier person just because they lost 20 pounds, right? It's never just that. It's got to be the other little things that bring you happiness along the way.
Yep.
Should we talk about lean mass, or do you want to say more about fat loss?
No, let's move on. I think we hit everything.
Yeah.
Emma, did we miss anything? Emma did this. She's like, no, you're good.
Yeah.
Just move on.
Yeah. Get on with it, guys. You're dragging. So lean mass, I mean, often this is kind of same side of the coin. Like you often get people that come in, they want to improve their body composition. They want to lose some body fat. They also want to put lean mass on at the same time. I'm throwing this one at you, Carl. Can you do both at the same time?
Yeah, you can. You shouldn't push that on people because usually it happens naturally. And usually it happens to people that don't have a lot of experience in, let's call it dieting and exercising. So when we start talking about like adaptation, they probably don't have a vast experience of muscle growth adaptation that has occurred in the past with them. Or they have experience and they took this big long break, like years and years and years, and they got back into it because there's like some time stamping stuff that happens with muscle building as well, where it is like riding a bike. If you put on this much muscle mass and you got really fat and then you lost all of it because you're not training, when you start training again, you can actually build that muscle mass and lose body fat at the same time. But for most people, it's not possible for most people.
Yeah, no, I just think important place to start the conversation. And we get that question a lot. People ask it all the time. So I think we're not talking about that total beginner who could potentially do both at the same time in this,
that's too easy.
conversation.
Yeah,
It is, right?
Yeah, it's very, very easy to lose body fat and put muscle mass on someone that just hasn't done any of the things that you're giving them now, right? Or that just has such a shitty lifestyle, kind of like the guy I was telling about with the sugar, where it's just like, they're just going to see a lot of results because their lifestyle is so bad right now.
Is there one primary behavior that you think is or goal, habit, whatever you want to call it, that is important for people who want to gain lean mass? We said caloric deficit consistently for the fat loss person. So what is it for lean mass?
There's a couple. I wouldn't say there's one main, but I guess the main would be maintaining a caloric surplus.
Yep.
And so many, it's obvious, right? When you lay that out to someone, it's like you have to eat enough food because if you're in a deficit, this is what's happening inside of the muscle tissue. And you explain that and they're like, oh, I get it, but I don't want to get fat. I don't want to, I don't want to eat too much, right? So I've worked with a lot of males that have had the goal of putting on more muscle mass. And, when you have the conversation of like, hey, like send me over some food logs. I just want to see what you're eating. I know what we're doing for training, but I just want to make sure that we can actually recover from that training and you're in a surplus still. They send it over and they're at like, they have a BMR of like 2,000 and they're eating 2,400 calories. And you're just like, yeah, we need to move that north.
Yep.
And, the first thing that comes out of a lot of their mouths is, well, I don't want to put body fat on, man. I told you I wanted to gain muscle mass. And it's just like, okay, let's sit down and have a lesson. So yeah, you just need to be in a caloric surplus.
Yeah, I have had that conversation more than a few times with more than a few guys also. So you hear these like words thrown around of, a clean versus a dirty bulk. What's the...
It sounded like a sexual thing.
It kind of did, and I don't know. It sounded
dirty bulk.
It was so wrong coming out of my mouth. Like those are not terms that I use. That is not like my fitness language. But I hear that stuff thrown around on social media, and in the gym bro world. Mm-hmm. So what are we talking about here?
Yeah, it's just if we look at, because we're not talking about the term bulking. We're just saying we want to put on muscle mass. Yeah. I don't really use that term. I don't know why. I haven't thought about it too much, but yeah. So being in a caloric surplus, clean versus dirty. Dirty would be. Dirty would be. You're just eating a bunch of junk calories for the sake of eating calories. But we always have to look at the efficiency of the calories that we eat.
Yep.
Right. So we can sit down and eat a bunch of fast food. Right. And those calories are calories, but what's happening in the digestive process with those things? And do we have to now go from 3,000 to 3,500 calories to now meet our micronutrient needs as well? So, look at efficiency of calories. I think that's really important. And you see this often with people that coin themselves hard gainers.
Yep.
I've worked with some individuals that are like, I can't put weight on to save my life. And you look at what they eat and all they're eating is like junk food. And you're just like, your calories just aren't very efficient. Mm-hmm. And they're just like, what the hell does that mean? It's just like your calories are, there's carbohydrates. Sometimes there's fats in there, but they're not efficient calories. They're not coming with any micronutrients to, build that base that you need. And at first they don't understand it. And then it's like, okay, let's do this. Let's stay at the same amount of calories. Let's change this processed junk food to, let's just say, whole foods, right? And you lay out the definition of whole foods and you give them some ideas. And then they do that and they're eating the same amount of calories. And they're just like, I feel so full all the time. They start putting on some weight. Muscle starts to come along because the calories that they're eating are just more efficient. So clean versus dirty, I guess, would just be eating higher quality foods on the clean side, and dirty, not even higher quality. Let me not say that. Eating more micronutrient dense foods on the clean side, and then on the dirty side, you're just getting in calories.
Yeah, it's challenging on the other side as well, because I have a client. He might be listening to this right now, and he's heard this from me before. But he loves veggies, like loves fruit and veggies, and just like goes to town every single meal and has a huge value on quality food and getting macros in, which is great. Like that's really, really awesome stuff. But when someone's trying to eat 3,500 calories and they're eating like a pound of broccoli at lunch, that can make it really, really tough tough on the digestive tract for one. Like it's a lot of fiber throughout a day.
Yep.
And just the volume of food to then get in the like caloric density that you need can be really challenging. So it's finding that balance between getting macros, but also making sure that someone is getting foods that are calorically dense enough. So they're not like just constantly eating, constantly feeling full, having digestive upset, and then actually not like absorbing those nutrients because they're shitting them all out.
Yeah. Gosh, yeah. What's the reason why he thinks he needs to get that much volume in?
Bias in the fitness industry around like quality food and paleo diet and things like that. I think it's just we develop these ideas and values around nutrition, and we think that, you know, eating oatmeal is bad or sugar is bad for us or whatever it might be. And that's not necessarily stuff he feels, but I've seen things like that develop in myself over the years. And I've observed that in a lot of people where they just think certain foods are bad because, you know, someone put that rubber stamp on them. And so because he has such high value on eating highly, you know, nutrient dense foods, because eat the rainbow, guys. It's hard for him to flip the switch sometimes and sometimes go for foods that may be slightly less micronutrient dense, but like have more macros in them.
Yeah. I think for someone like that, I think that's a better bias that to have than the opposite side where it's like eat a bunch of junk and
totally
what we eat doesn't matter. But for someone like that, that's probably someone that wants to be locked in, right? Or someone that wants to, you know, whatever they can control, they want those things to be as optimal as possible. So for that person, I would just look under the hood and be like, hey, go get some blood work done, right? And let's see what your body actually needs. Because, you know, he might get some blood work done and see some things or, oh man, I'm actually overdoing it in some places. And then like, you know, you guys have a conversation on like, you know, what are some negative effects of overdoing it? And that's actually not optimal. You know, that might actually change those behaviors. And he's like, okay, I need to calm down on this. Or if there's some digestive things that are happening or distress or so on and so forth. I mean, there could be some good conversation around, hey, you need to actually dial it back a little bit because of these reasons. I think people just need tangible reasons why they should or shouldn't do anything, which I'm like that as well.
Totally. That could be a good little use of inside tracker right there.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, it's a flip side, right? Because with fat loss, oftentimes you're trying to get people to eat foods that are higher in volume so they have satiety and they don't feel like they're eating air all day because they are in a deficit. And then when someone is eating in a caloric surplus, if that's challenging for them, how can we get foods that are more calorically dense in so you don't feel like you're just shoveling food down all day?
Yeah. So I think you just educate them on what more calorically dense foods are, right? Yeah. So if it's that guy and he's like, I can't do this. You're like, hey man, you're eating, 500 grams of broccoli at every meal. That is not a calorically dense meal. Let's bring that down to 50, right? Let's cook it. Let's put some butter on it. Let's give it some better flavor. You know what I mean? Like let's just have some conversations on how we can eat the exact same way, but how we can alter some things to put more calories in those meals.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Hopefully he listened to this and he's taking that on board.
Yeah. So, and maintaining a caloric surplus, obviously eating enough calories is number one, and then strategies around that. And then number two would be ensuring that the people are digesting all of those calories effectively.
Yeah.
So ideas that we talk about are, chewing enough, right? Yep. Like chewing your food until it's mush, eating in a relaxed state, and appreciating the digestive process.
Yeah.
And I know that's tough for a lot of us, depending on what we're doing on a day-by-day basis. So for some client, it might be, appreciate the digestive process in one of your meals.
Yeah.
And when they're like, what the hell is the digestive process? It's like, I want you to actually prepare your food. I want you to smell it. I want you to salivate. I want you to, watch it cook. I want you to plate it. I want you to sit down. I want you to be in a really restful state. I want you to chew it. I want you to, you know what I mean? You go through that entire digestive process. And then after you're done, I want you to move your body a little bit in whatever way feels right for you to move your body. Like do that with one meal per day. Optimally, we'd be doing it with every meal, but we just can't, right? Like, we bring food places, we put it in microwaves. Like we're taking little shortcuts here because we have to. I think it's good to go through that entire process at least one time per day.
Lunch has been a huge evaluating of that for me, because often, and I'm sure a lot of clients experience this, like you finish your morning of work, you're hungry, and you're also thinking about, I have this 1 hour or this 45 minutes, whatever it is, to get my food in. I want to do it as quickly as possible. And so I used to have almost like heart like racing palpitation moment where I'd like walk downstairs and try to get my food hot as fast as possible, which sounds so silly, but it was very stressful for me if I had to like chop anything extra or take any extra steps to get my food on the table and into my mouth. And I thought about that and how stressed I was getting about heating up my food, and how like waiting for those like seconds to tick by was really like just grating on my like nervous system. And just like laughed at myself and was like, I just need to like use these 5 minutes while I'm preparing my food to, number one, smell, like just appreciate the meal that is to come, and not put myself in this like fight or flight scenario where my body is not going to be ready to eat and absorb anything at all. So that like heating process now, I really try to like relax, take some deep breaths, sitting down to eat. I do it sometimes here. I know I have my phone out, but if I'm at home, I do not look at my phone. I'm not doing any like slacking while I'm eating my lunch. And then we have our post-lunch walk. Yeah. So, gosh, it's really easy just to get like carried away by the stress of getting to the next thing.
Yeah. That's gosh, I think we talked about it last week, but we did, because we had to get off the podcast because we had lunch. But I really honor those meal times. I think I just really enjoy eating. Yeah. And I don't want to ever be in like a crunch where I have to like shovel my food down just because I don't feel good when I do that. So I'm losing resiliency as we optimize.
Yeah, I think, we, that's the problem, right? Whenever one little thing gets out of whack for us, you know how good it feels to be optimized, and you don't want to get away from that.
We're going to Florida tomorrow, and we're going for a little over a week, and that's the type of stuff that goes through my head. I'm just like, my meal schedules, how do I keep those exactly where they are? How do I keep my morning routine exactly where it is? How do I incorporate exercise in the way that I want to incorporate exercise? How do I get out and like move? And there'll be plenty of that just because we'll be on a beach and stuff like that. But just thinking about that doesn't stress me out at all, but it's a consideration. I'm like, tonight I'll have to sit down and like plan that out. It's like, okay, this time I'm going to, probably drop into some gym over there. We don't have any OPEX gyms where we're going. That sucks. But I'll find a gym. I'll drop in there before anyone wakes up at like, 5:30 in the morning or something like that. But thinking about those things in rhythm is always a consideration.
Totally. It's hilarious you said that, because just this morning I found a gym in La Jolla when we were there last week of June that I can drop into and make sure I got a little morning exercise in. Feels so good.
There's no shortage in gyms in San Diego.
No, but a lot of them are like closed and like masky and like not letting visitors in right now.
Masky, huh?
California's real real tight right now still.
There's a shortage of gyms, and we're staying in Vero Beach, so there's not a bunch of gyms over there.
Just take a couple kettlebells with you on the plane.
I don't know if it's worth it. I think it might be cheaper to just buy them.
Probably so.
We're going to my father-in-law's house, so anything we buy, we just keep there.
One last kind of digestion-y piece consideration for someone that wants to gain lean mass is, gosh, I think thinking about like any food sensitivities and intolerances, and like, is there any digestive distress that's going on that isn't just from like eating KFC or too much broccoli? And maybe or maybe not, this is within the scope.
Sorry, I think it's so funny. You said KFC. I'm like, where did that go?
Didn't you say like fried chicken?
Did I say that?
You said something about like eating, maybe it was a hamburger.
I don't know. I'm just like, do they have KFC in Australia?
We do, actually. My nana and my papa used to take me to KFC, and I really liked the mashed potatoes with gravy when I was a kid. All right. Which sounds disgusting now I think about it. And Mountain Dew.
I didn't coin you as a KFC and Mountain Dew person.
I think I stopped being a KFC and Mountain Dew person when I was about 9 years old, but when I was very young, I was into that. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Gross to think about now.
All right. Sorry, I cut you off.
Yes. But no, thinking about, is there potentially any other underlying issues that could be going on? Is someone, having to run to the bathroom after they're eating because dairy is a part of their diet right now, and that doesn't sit right with them.
Yep.
So I have had experiences with clients where we have, dialed that stuff in, played with some elimination protocols for a while, and just like realized that coffee with breakfast or dairy at lunchtime just doesn't sit right. Let's pull those things out so you're actually getting what you need from your food.
Absolutely. Yep. And I think last thing that we need to consider is all of the other lifestyle things that influence recovery that we talked about with fat loss as well. And for this goal and building muscle mass, recovery is extremely important, right? Someone can get lean and sleep. Well, let me be careful and say this. Someone can get lean and sleep 4 hours a night. Like that's possible.
Yeah, cocaine.
Yeah. No one's putting a bunch of muscle mass on sleeping 3 hours, 4 hours a night. Like that's extremely difficult when we think about the process of, muscle being damaged and muscle building. And when we start to get up there in age, for most people, it's over 30 years old. We have to start.
I'm not there yet.
Who are you pointing? We have to start thinking about, we're on the other end, right? We're going downhill when it comes to potential of putting on muscle naturally. So, just thinking about those other lifestyle pieces that affect recoverability are important.
Yeah, interesting opportunity to do a little blood work there as well, and look at testosterone levels in males, and especially as guys get over the hump, 30 years old, and
get over the hump.
All decline. Maybe literally. Just making sure there's nothing going on under the hood.
For sure.
That might not be where you start. Perhaps that's something that the client has knowledge around, but chances are they don't. But if someone is really having a hard time and you feel like everything's dialed in, or not having a hard time, I should say, if they are not living the 4 H's of happy, hungry, horny, and healthy. Those are the 4 H's. Then perhaps it's time to get some blood work. Send them out to the doctor.
Testosterone's important. It is. Yes, I'll leave it there. Testosterone's important.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, cortisol, testosterone, all that stuff, and just seeing where we're at.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that is muscle gain.
That is muscle gain.
The third consideration, like the third thing that people walk into the gym, or they reach out online for their remote coach, whatever it might be, that probably walking into the gym though, this person, they want to feel good.
Yeah.
They feel their energy sucks. They have a slump in the afternoon. They're, not sleeping great. They're stressed out all the time. Their joints kind of ache. They don't feel like they can, go out and hike on the weekends. They just want to be able to do all of that stuff and have a good life.
Yeah. This is extremely individualized.
Yeah.
Right? Like we just have to look at the BLGs.
Yeah.
And we have to assess each one of those with every person that walks in. And the goal there is to identify, why the hell does this person not feel good? Is their sleep not optimized? Is their rhythm really bad, right? When you ask them, like, what does a day look like for you? If you ask them that for 5 straight days, are there any consistencies there, right? Do they have good rhythm? And even if someone has good rhythm, are there good behaviors that are inside of that rhythm? So you could do bad things every single day, quote unquote. So you have to change those behaviors in there. You look at hydration levels, you look at digestion, so on and so forth. So you just look at just BLGs, and it's like, where can we optimize here?
Yeah. Well, oftentimes, gosh, that person comes in and they're not optimized in any area. Like literally everything from sleep to hydration to food hygiene to rhythm to digestion, like all of these pieces could be improved in some way. And it's very easy to say, these are the BLGs, go do them, and just like throw all 8 or however many it is at them. But that's not 7. I feel like they used to be 8.
Yeah, there did used to be.
Yeah, we condensed it down a little bit. That's confusing. Don't change these things on me. But no, it's easy to throw all 7 at them and say, like, go for it. This is what a healthy lifestyle looks like. But that's not realistic for most people. It's not going to end up at the good result. I know when I'm like triaging, I typically figure out like what's going to be easiest for this person to have success in first. Because if sleep is like just off limits because they have like a 6-month-old and a 2-year-old and they just like they're just sleeping bad right now, and that's going to be really hard for them to fix. But hydration is something that they're aware of, and that they know, you know, if I do this, this, and this, I can make it happen. Then I'm going to work on that first, and sleep might be something we address later on when it becomes more realistic and some of the initial areas are looked after.
Yep. I agree. Yeah, I think it's that triage piece is really important, and understanding what are the questions that you even ask to triage these things. That's important as well. And obviously we lay that out in our education and intake and initial consultation. But that's where you identify where there's holes, and through conversation, like you said, that's also where you identify what is that lowest hanging fruit and what can you actually attack right now. Whether that's, you know, are they capable of doing these things right now, i.e. sleeps 4 hours, but I have to breastfeed and I have a 2-year-old as well. You're not breastfeeding the 2-year-old. Well, no judgment. Judgment. You're not breastfeeding the 2-year-old, but you have a 6-month-old and a 2-year-old. So it's just getting at you from both sides. You know, that's there, but that's not low hanging fruit because you can't really address that right now. But you did identify that they're drinking, you know, 1/4 in ounces their body weight per day in water. And you're like, okay, that's something that is a low hanging fruit. Let me lay out a strategy and how you can incorporate, you know, better hydration in your day. And it's like, you might be attacking hydration for 4 weeks, right? Yeah. And it's like, boom, how do you feel? You know, we've consistently gotten to, you know, 70 ounces from, you know, 40. It's like, do you feel any better? Like, yeah, like I think I feel a little bit better. Now it's like, okay, cool. Let's continue to do that. And now we're going to attack this other thing that is like the next lowest hanging fruit. And then, yeah, I think it's just assessing what you said, triaging, identifying what they're capable of doing, and then laying out the plan.
Yeah, and like with this area, this feel-good area, the like word or theme or habit that really jumps out to me is just consistency across all of those pieces, because our body loves consistent inputs. We thrive when we have that routine in all of those areas. It lets us be more resilient and handle the inevitable unpredictability of life that gets thrown at us. So when we do have all of those things in order, you know, that stressful deadline or that sick kid just become easier to handle. So how can we shore this person up to create consistency in all of the BLGs and make sure that they can carry that through? That's what jumps out to me.
Yep. Yeah, have a system in assessing, and have a system in delivering.
Yes.
Shout out to us, CCP and Coach RX, right? Like, I mean, those are the problems we're trying to solve. We talked about that. And, you know, the challenge up top with how do we put lifestyle in front of exercise, and there has to be a way to do it that's very low barrier for both sides.
Definitely. Guys, as always, thank you for listening. Please make sure you like and subscribe. Leave us a review. That stuff really helps out. We'll see you next week.
See ya.